Hey everyone. Hey everybody. As people are joining in, just want to welcome you to the 2025 Employee Engagement Productivity Playbook. I'm Alex Grande. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Recognize. We're an employee engagement platform. Been around for about 10 years, incorporated in 2016. I'm also here with our head of customer success, Brittany.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brittany. I head up the customer success team here at Recognize. I spend my days working directly with HR teams from companies like Goodwill, Allegiant Airlines, PitchBook, and many in manufacturing, helping them roll out recognition programs that actually stick. So not just the set it and forget it kind, but ones that really drive engagement, improve morale, and support company goals. I've seen firsthand what works, what flops, and all the creative ways that teams are using recognition to boost productivity and retention. So I'm excited to share some of those real world insights with you today. And hopefully by the end of today's webinar, you'll have a playbook of strategies to boost employee engagement, increase productivity, and improve safety throughout modern HR practices and technology integration.
Perfect, Brittany. Thanks a lot. Again, Brittany is the head of customer success here at Recognize. I'm Alex. I'm the CEO and co-founder. We're an employee engagement platform, and I see people as they're joining. That's great. I'd love it for people to, the thing about webinars is if we were all in the same room together, there would be a mingling, hanging out. Let's have that energy in a webinar. So if people in the chat can say, where you're coming from, what company, where you're located, I bet there's somebody in this group right now that you want to connect with. We're all here for a reason. We care about the employee experience, employee motivation, having a great company culture, right? That's why we're all here. So we're all kind of aligned. So there's a lot of similar people and minds, a lot of synergy that could be happening. So please put in the chat where you're coming from, and definitely what company you're part of. And maybe there's some synergy of, you could be each other's customers. So reach out to people in the chat. Awesome. I see Peter kicking it off here in Northern California, Chicago. Adelina, great to see you. Myra, nice to see you as well. Savannah. Awesome. Bunch of people coming in through the chat. Check it out. Carrie, sorry. Trent. Awesome. A lot of people all around the country coming in. Turner Construction. Awesome. Actually, my dad worked for Turner Construction before he retired. So that's really cool. Awesome. Deeper Technologies, Tobias. Alicia there in Colorado Springs. Sorry. All right. Well, let's keep going a little bit farther here, but yeah, make sure to connect with people. You can chat with them individually. There's someone there, someone from NASA, Helene, awesome. What an honor to have you here. Obviously, huge fans of NASA. Who isn't? Awesome. Austin, great. I used to live there, Gabe. Nice to see you. I'm there all the time. So love having people from Austin in the group. Cool. We'll connect with people more along the way. We're going to do some polls, and I really want to get to that Q&A as quick as possible at the end. So let's keep it rolling here. So so the agenda of the call is, again, I'm Alex. This is Brittany, and we're going to connect more with you along the way. But just to highlight what Recognize is real quick, Recognize is an employee recognition and rewards platform. We engage in customers in the manufacturing space and beyond. So we're going to talk about customers like Winnebago and how they take advantage of it. Our goal today really is to give you a playbook for employee engagement and help you boost motivation, boost productivity. People wrote me beforehand some of their concerns. I'm going to be highlighting those along the way. We're really excited about getting into that. So the agenda of the call. So it's about 6 steps here. We're going to talk about, what are the challenges right now that we're seeing, and then a number of playbooks you can do around recognition and surveying, upskilling, and then some success stories. What are some customers using Recognize? How are they benefiting companies like Winnebago? And then we'll get in that Q&A, and then we really want to hear from you. We want to dive into your issues, and we can work as a group to help you solve that. And that's why it's so powerful having the webinar component. All right, Brittany, you want to take it away?
Yeah, thanks, Alex. So let's set the stage here for why this conversation really matters right now. And of course, the big headline you see there is employee engagement in the US hit a 10-year low in 2024. So only 31% of employees were actively engaged at work. That means that 2 out of 3 people are just going through the motions. 17% of employees are actively checked out. This is part of a bigger trend that we've all heard about, like quiet quitting, where people are doing the bare minimum and basically mentally distancing themselves from their roles. And this isn't just a US thing. Globally, only about 23% of workers are engaged. That's nearly 8 in 10 employees who aren't feeling connected or excited about their work. What's even more concerning is that over half of employees are actively job hunting or at least keeping an eye out for their next move. So if your top performers aren't feeling valued or challenged, there's a good chance that someone else will happily recruit them. So now here's the kicker. Disengagement isn't just a vibe problem. It's a massive productivity drain. Gallup actually estimates that low engagement costs the global economy around 8.8 trillion. That's 9% of GDP every year. And CEOs are noticing it too. I read a recent study that showed that about 40% of work time is believed to be wasted on low value tasks. So really the equation here is very simple. Poor engagement leads to poor productivity. And when we're talking about the manufacturing space, the impact is even more direct. When people are disengaged in the manufacturing space, you see more mistakes, lower output, and higher safety risks too. Now, on the flip side of that, engaged employees are going to be more careful, they're going to be more consistent in their work, and they're going to be more committed to doing the job right the first time. We're going to dig a little bit later into some of that data, but really this is the gap that we're here to close today. I'm going to pass it over to Alex, and he's going to talk a little bit more about the challenges and opportunities that we see in the manufacturing workspace.
Thank you so much, Brittany. That was awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you understand the challenge right now around talent shortage, right? So there's a stat I have here: 550,000 jobs are currently unfulfilled, and that's going to grow to potentially 2 million by 2030, right? And so that's a Deloitte stat. So that puts a lot of pressure on organizations to retain their top staff, especially. And I think we all know that there's an aging and aging out issue right now, where 51%, half the workforce is over 45. So that upskilling of younger employees is so essential. There's another stat: only 14% of Gen Z consider manufacturing careers in the future, right? So we need to change that culture, that perception around potentially low pay or culture issues. So that being said, let's move it on to a couple other things to mention around technology to be able to take advantage of being able to upskill to retain employees. There's all these third-party systems. You're probably already using some of them, like Workday to manage your users, and then all the supplemental tools around that. And also just kind of highlight that only 27% of staff feel like they have a belonging in the organization. So I'm curious, as a poll, if we can put that into the chat, what are the challenges affecting you? Is the talent shortage issue, is that what you're thinking about? There's a challenge that popped up here in Zoom. B, low engagement, right? Low morale. That's where that 27% stat comes into play. Only 1/3 of people feel connected in the workplace. The bottom line is we need to attract, retain, and understand and motivate the people who are keeping the production lines running, right? C as well, productivity or quality issues, skill gap. And there's something else that we haven't mentioned. Just go ahead and put it in the chat and share it. I can't hear you on the settings. Let me just check my audio settings real quick. Okay, I see my mic is low. Hopefully that's a lot better there. Drew, hopefully the audio is a lot better.
You definitely sound louder now.
Okay, great. Sorry about that so much. Oh my gosh. Okay, put that into the poll. We'll come back to that later. Brittany, you want to take it away for recognition?
Yeah, totally. So I want to kick it off with this is kind of our first play here that we want to talk about today. And this is fostering a recognition-rich culture. And this one is so important, especially in manufacturing environments where employees can often feel overlooked or invisible. They're the ones that are on the front lines, getting the job done every day, but they're not always seen or appreciated. And recognition matters. It's actually one of the most powerful and underutilized tools that we have to drive engagement. When we, as leaders and as organizations, are consistently recognizing frontline employees for their achievements, their safety records, or even just creative ideas, we're sending a clear message. We see you and you matter. And that message really pays off big time. The research is actually super clear on this. Employees who are frequently recognized are 3 times more likely to be actively engaged. That's huge. And again, this isn't just about boosting morale or feeling good. Recognition directly impacts performance. Some Gallup data actually shows that highly engaged teams, which often means well-recognized teams, have 21% higher productivity. And they also see significantly lower absenteeism and turnover as well. And this is because when people feel seen and valued, they care more. They're more likely to hit production targets. They take fewer shortcuts, and overall, they just take more pride in their work. So the question is, how do you build this kind of culture? And it really starts small. It starts with small, consistent actions. Peer-to-peer recognition is a great tactic, a great place to start. Think about things like monthly shout outs, safety awards, or celebrating quality milestones. And honestly, don't forget about the power of a simple thank you. Recognition doesn't always have to be big, and it doesn't always have to be monetary. A public shout out or a badge tied to your company values can be just as impactful as a monetary or tangible award. For example, if you have a company value of something like continuous improvement, you might consider giving out a continuous improvement badge or shout out for ideas that help streamline processes or reduce waste, for example. And tying recognition to company values and missions not only will boost morale, it reinforces those behaviors that you want to see more of. And of course, technology makes this easier than ever. So platforms like Recognize allow employees to give and receive recognition right in the flow of work. And that's really important, especially for frontline workers who aren't going to be sitting in front of a computer all day. So it's really important to make sure that recognition is happening throughout their day-to-day work. And this can happen with technology through things like Microsoft Teams, Outlook, Slack, and other daily tools that your employees might be using. So recognition becomes part of the rhythm and not viewed as just another task. One cool example that I'd like to share is with one of our Canadian-based customers, Sangel Energy Services. They've got over 500 employees, and they now have over 88% of their employees getting recognized every month since rolling out their recognition program using Recognize through the Microsoft Teams app. And they've actually seen so much success that they recently onboarded a similar program for their subsidiary company Wayfinder as well. So they're really finding huge success in being able to reach their employees through modern technology. So that's play one. Start recognizing more, start recognizing often. It's simple, it's powerful, and it works. So now I want to pass it over to Alex for the next slide, and he's going to talk about empowering the employee voice.
Thanks so much, Brittany. Yeah, totally. I mean, years ago, you bring your hands to the office, to the work, and then code check your heart at the door, right? That's what your employer would ask you to do. But now it's that, head, hands, and heart that you need to bring every day to the workplace. And that only happens when people are celebrated rather than just tolerated. Now, moving on to employee voice and listening to your employees, I'm going to talk about a number of things. Now, I think we all know that surveying and understanding your staff's perception is important, right? But then how do you kind of handle some issues around that? So one of those issues that you can see is having anonymity concerns. People may not want to speak up because they're concerned that the surveys are not anonymous. So a couple tips on how to help with that, how to build trust is, well, I think trust first comes at the very first moment that person is onboarded into the company, right? I think in the onboarding process, that's the first survey that somebody would experience, right? When you want to ask them, what is your gift? What is your talent? What is your skill? What do you want for you? And where do you see yourself going? And you relay that to the manager. The manager is the one asking these questions if you can. And then they're following up with that and bringing that up in those one-on-ones. And that's how you build that trust right off the bat. But then as far as going back to anonymity, there's a number of things you can do, like using a platform that's a third party. Obviously third party is going to be more anonymous, something that even maybe your employees can sign up for, right? Something like Google Forms or Typeform, these software solutions that they are truly anonymous because they're third party and they're limited in their functionality. With Recognize as well, doing surveys with Recognize, being able to, again, create that trust, showing them, giving them, screenshots of what the platform on the back end, letting people test it ahead of time. So that's an important thing. Another thing to talk about, and someone mentioned this to me in an email, is the incentivizing of the surveys, right? Even if you already are trying to incentivize people for surveys, like giving them money or some kind of benefit for completing the survey, again, that could be tied to the skepticism around the trust, right? Is it anonymous? If you're able to reward us, or maybe the incentive is just not in line with this survey. So a couple of ideas that you can think about are group-based rewards, so that, let's say, collective gamification, 80% of the organization completes the survey, then everybody gets X, something that you can provide, a pizza party, for instance, right? Another thing is doing the rewards randomized and after the fact, right? After the surveys close, that's when you release what the, who's been awarded. Again, a third-party system can help with that randomization. And that way there's no kind of timestamp of when that person completed the survey to when they received an award, right, for completing the survey. So kind of like a raffle system that's delayed. Another concept is using non-monetary recognition for the survey system. If a certain, especially collective, right, a certain department, has the highest percentage of completion, then they're recognized by the leadership. So those are a couple of ideas on incentivizing, different ways of thinking about the rewards of completing surveys. And then as far as, again, you need to act on the surveys. I think we all know that as well, but really asking yourself, if that question is going to be going on the survey, can you do something about it? So if the question is, does your manager motivate you? And the answer ends up being no, across the board, what are you going to do about it, right? So you can only ask questions that you can tackle at that time is a recommendation, and really focusing less is more. So maybe having, the questionnaire could have 20 questions, but those are broken into really 4 groups of 5, right? So it's like you're going after, 4 concepts really, but each has a different kind of angle in the question and how you go about that. If you're not already doing this, doing, you said, we did kind of updates. If you have a newsletter, I highly recommend piggybacking off of existing habits, town halls, newsletters, things like this that they can take advantage of to say, hey, this is what we heard last month, last quarter, and here's things that we're working on to help with that, right? So that's always really good. And then kind of if you're a large organization, bubbling that down to, culture champions, feedback champions, and these folks can be ones kind of communicating at different levels the action items and the reporting of the survey. Another feedback I got was that the culture committee that you have is kind of just not as strong as it used to be, right? It should be an honor to be part of the culture committee. Maybe possibly there's a 10-year process or kind of like a 1-year period in which you are involved, and that it's a step to leadership. What is leadership really if it's not bringing people along the journey and discovering the leaders in themselves? And that can be done through a culture component. So kind of elevating and making it prestigious to be part of the culture committee is one idea there. And then having people kind of connected satellite members of that culture committee that are evangelizing the culture in different departments. They're entrepreneurs, a recognition program, a survey program. These aren't always easy things to do. It's like you're building your own product. That's why, talking to product marketing, getting people involved to communicate this most effectively internally, don't take it lightly and don't give up, having that determination. Why are, entrepreneurs successful? Well, they're successful when they have that passion and that dedication and don't give up. So don't give up on that. We're there with you. There's a lot of interesting people in the chat, 64. So, reach out. Maybe there's some other people in there that are also facing similar problems that you connect with. A couple other things to involve that I want to mention is this idea of inclusive involvement. So, there's other ways to listen to people than just a survey, right? Obviously there's ways, SaaS solutions, things you just turn on and you can get an improvement from your culture. But oftentimes it's those little micro tweaks that really add up, especially when you take advantage of the network of your crowd, of the staff, right? So having managers really have those ideas meetings where for instance, if you're a machine operator and you suggest a workflow tweak that could save that one person hours, and if there's 1,000 machine, you're saving thousands and thousands of hours, right? So really listening to your employees is in different kinds of ways, not just through software or programs, but also just having those idea meetings. And then again, I touched on the one-on-ones. It's so easy for one-on-ones just kind of fall to the wayside, or for one-on-ones just to end up just being a chat about the weather, right? And but you really need to ask, how are you? Again, going back to that first question you ask in the onboarding, what do you want for you? What challenges are you facing right now? Anything I can do, and making sure that's the first part of that one-on-one. Of course, yes, it's a good time to bring up anything that, hey, why wait 6 months for a performance review to bring up something? That's the time you can do it. But you want to have that, build that trust with that employee that they can come to you and talk to you, right? And that means having candid conversations, but are calm and respectful. Respect is so critical. If you want that employee to be able to open up to you, you want to be able to do that, And I think we all know about things like the feedback sandwich. I think instead, just having that manager having a great relationship with that employee, so if something comes up, they can just talk to them about it, and they don't have to put it into some kind of cute little package to be able to communicate tough conversations. Especially if the first part of the conversation, again, is how are you? Where are you? Are you feeling seen? Are you feeling understood? Right? What is your passion? What is your skill? What do you want to bring to the table? I have a stat here: 50 to 70% of an employee's perception of their job is influenced by their manager, their direct manager. I think we all know that expression. Join a company, leave the manager. I think that's the expression. How about instead join the company and then be elevated by the manager? That's what we really want to see. So those are a few ideas. I'm going to pass it back to Brittany.
Thanks, Alex. Okay, so we've talked about how do we get that engagement rich culture. We've talked about empowering the customer or the employee voice. And now I want to talk a little bit about something that gets overlooked way too often in manufacturing, and that is growth and development. Here's the thing: when employees don't feel like they're growing, they disengage. So one recent study here in 2024 estimated that only 30% of manufacturing employees say that they have enough time and resources to develop their skills. That's a huge missed opportunity, especially for younger workers. Alex talked a little bit about kind of the shift in the workforce. And with younger workers, growth isn't just a nice to have, it's actually one of the top drivers of engagement. When people feel like they're growing in their careers, they stick around, they lean in, they care more. On the productivity side, the data is pretty clear here. 70% of manufacturers are actively investing in upskilling programs right now, and 3 out of 4 are seeing big returns, more promotions, better morale, and real gains in productivity. Think about things like training on new equipment, leadership workshops for line supervisors, or Lean Six Sigma training for frontline teams. These aren't just educational, they empower employees to contribute more and make fewer mistakes. So how do we make this happen? So a couple tried and true tactics would be on-the-job training paired with mentorship. This is especially great for employees who are looking to advance or need a stretch assignment, and also for transferring knowledge from experienced team members before they retire. The second thing would be micro-learning on like mobile devices. This is really important in the frontline world and super helpful for employees who don't sit at a desk all day. So instead of long training sessions or bulky manuals, the shift here in today's society is really micro learning that delivers short bite-sized lessons that workers can complete in just a few minutes. Think about quick how-to videos, safety reminders, or step-by-step guides, all accessible right from a smartphone or a tablet. And of course, recognizing and rewarding employees when they hit training milestones. This is one of the things that we see most success with in recognition programs. Don't let those wins go unnoticed. I was recently working with a company that was dealing with low engagement in their training programs. They were having employees who weren't excited to do the training and had really low completion rates in the training. This was impacting their ability to promote from within and develop internal talent. So they really revamped their whole approach, ditching those boring slide decks in favor of e-learning. They publicly recognized and rewarded learning milestones, essentially gamifying growth. And the result was higher completion rates and a boost in training satisfaction. Employees were actually excited to learn. And that translated to better on-the-job performance and overall less turnover. So if you're thinking about where you might want to invest this year, don't underestimate the power of learning. Growth equals engagement, and engagement drives everything else. One of the things that I love that Alex mentioned in the previous slide is having a culture committee. And I love to think about the culture committee in terms of a growth assignment for your top performing leaders or employees who are looking to advance their careers. This is a really great opportunity to kind of combine all of these plays into one. So you're, giving people from different areas and different departments the ability to be a part of a culture committee and help to create that engagement rich culture. You're hearing from the employees straight from leaders or managers or top performers that are working on the floor with them. And you're giving those culture committee members an opportunity to have that stretch assignment and really develop their own careers by really contributing to those efforts. So that's probably one of my biggest recommendations for companies looking to kind of improve this engagement culture is creating that culture committee and really using that as a tool. I am going to pass it back to Alex. He's going to talk a little bit about he's going to talk a little bit more about customer specific examples that we've seen in our industry.
Definitely. I think we have a poll first before we're going to move
yep, you're
to
right.
technology. And I can go ahead and ask.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. But yeah, we're just curious what if you're using a dedicated engagement platform, and put in the chat if you want to say, if it's a recognition program or maybe it's a survey tool like Qualtrics. So, yes, you have a fully featured tool, employee recognition, surveys, rewards. I see Dana saying UKG voice, so thanks for sharing. Yes, but it's very basic. Maybe it's a homegrown form, maybe it's a spreadsheet, maybe somebody gets an email. Maybe you're using something like Google Forms, or no, we're exploring options. We're looking into, issues, or we're looking into solutions, but maybe the issue is maybe price, and you can put that into the chat as well. If price is an issue, I see Tina mentioning Nectar. That's great. And then just straight up no. So great, we have the result already. Awesome. We have 40% of the group already has a fully featured solution. Again, we want to talk about in the Q&A what problems or issues you're facing even with those. You're like, well, we put all this effort into this. We have a tool, or we have a solution, but what are you facing as far as maybe if you are having challenges, or what are the success stories you're having? What has been so awesome? What are the big changes? I bet a lot of you have a lot of great success stories as well. It's not all about the challenges. But yeah, going into some examples of some manufacturing companies that we work with, and I'll show you a little bit about how Recognize works as well. But I just want to highlight, with recognition, why it's so important at any company. Yes, we what's great about manufacturing, like with CalFrac and these organizations, is celebrating safety and having, with the onboarding of Recognize or onboarding of a program, promoting it at all levels of the organization. When they have luncheons, there's a booth that talks about the recognition, that showcases the recognitions. It was just Employee Appreciation Day in March. It happens every March. A lot of our customers will again have events for that, and they'll do something physical along with the digital solution of recognition. And one stat I heard in in another webinar, and I couldn't find the source, but I really think it's true, which is 1 minute of recognition by, let's say, a manager leads to 100 minutes of initiative by the employee. And if you think about it, it only takes a couple minutes to send a heartfelt message to somebody, and then think about kind of how you feel, that buzz after the fact, and you create that, right? But I think one of the major things that comes with onboarding, like CalFrac with promoting the events, or other organizations that promoting recognition, one of the things that comes up in any company, though, with programs like this, is all companies have, if you think about it, there are early adopters, there are fence sitters, and there are naysayers, right? And that's true even in markets as well, in product development. But if you think about it, with that, you really want to focus on those early adopters, because those early adopters, they're the champions, they're focused on the behaviors to move the company forward, right? The fence sitters of your organization, they can go either way on these programs, on these initiatives that you're trying to promote, the future of your organization. But it's the naysayers, right, that no matter how much you give them recognition and you motivate them and you talk to them and coach them, it can be very hard for the naysayers to change, right? And so you don't want those fence sitters to lean over into the naysayers on programs like recognition. So thinking about, of course, managers need to have that challenging conversation with those naysayers. Is this the place for you if you're not on board with these initiatives, right? But there's always going to be that kind of split in the normal curve of an organization that you want to think about. when onboarding these types of solutions. So, we have some other customers as well to mention. Mosaic, they're an international mining organization. They have and what's interesting about them is right now they're just using Recognize from an IT perspective, just their IT team. So if you're a large organization, you want to test the waters with something like an initiative, maybe you're in that 60% of the group that has something basic, or you're not doing anything at all. Well, one way is just having one department, start small and grow with some of these initiatives and see what happens, see if there's movement there. So for instance, like Mosaic having that IT Excellence Award that they've created and recognized. And I'll give you an example of what all this looks like and Recognize in a second. Another example is Winnebago. Obviously, we all know them as an American brand, and they use it to promote quality of work. So, kind of what do I mean by promoting these things? Well, if I'm in, let's say, Microsoft Teams, and I click on Recognize, you should be able to see my screen here. Now I can see what values of the organization I represent in the Recognize platform. This is true, inside our website as well. So this is kind of the main screen of Recognize. I think when people say it's Nectar, it's a similar program where you're recognizing and rewarding the employees. What's unique about Recognize is the kind of the badging system that we create that allows companies to, recognize and reward people around the values. So if I'm in, let's say, Teams, I can click Recognize, and then now, based off the permissions that maybe come over from Workday or UKG, we can set up those permissions to be able to say only you have access to certain values or behaviors that you can incentivize at your level of the organization, right? Impact maker, for instance, and then I can give additional points, and then be able to recognize individuals or multiple people. Now, I just want to kind of give a sense of, in manufacturing, it's so critical on the phone. That's why, somebody asked me in an email yesterday, how do I recognize people in the field, construction workers, but also in the back office? Their phones, and also through their managers, but especially their phones. That's why we have a text messaging feature. People can just get text messages and interact with Recognize on the phone without downloading anything. But if you do download our mobile app for Android or an iPhone, then you can be giving recognition and giving points around the behaviors. And one of the things I really love about, Recognize for the manufacturing is promoting safety. You can go into our incentives program and be able to say I completed a security training or a safety training, or maybe I've reached a certain goal in safety, and then be able to redeem items in Amazon or Swag. Hopefully if you have a recognition program in your company that you're not spending a lot of money on markup on rewards, and then you also have a rich catalog of items. Before the call, I was searching around Amazon that we have a partnership with and looking at bikes. I am in the market, but it's fun for kids as well if you have a family. And then with Recognize, of course, there's surveys and there's reporting on the surveys and there's reporting on the points and be able to control the entire platform from a budgetary perspective from the website as an admin. So, but I don't want to spend too much time on the demo, back into the presentation. So that's how the companies are using it. Another example is British Sugar. So, they're obviously an international organization as well. And some of the values I have right here, respecting each other, open and flexible, drive to action, working together, stay safe. And so those are all awesome reasons to give recognition and create that kind of promotion. And then you can kind of do additional gamification and things like that. That's really exciting. I did want to touch on one of our customers. It's a bank in the UK, Metro Bank. And so the people who receive the most recognition around certain values or badges, which is all in the reporting on the system, are then they get to go on an outing together. And a lot of times now with organizations with workforces that are distributed, how do you create those types of things? And I think there's a lot of great tools out there to do that now. You don't have to spend a lot of time now getting people together in one place. There's tools like Troop and other kind of scheduling apps that allow you to just put in people's location, and then they can figure out where they can all meet as a kind of an award. So there's lots of ways to kind of motivate people. So went through how Recognize works here. Again, let's see. Went through the demo. Yeah, this is Brittany. Go ahead. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Thanks for sharing those real life customer examples and giving us a quick demo. I just want to real quickly wrap up with some key takeaways before we dive into Q&A, because I want to make sure that we have a good amount of time to answer your questions. So let's bring it all together. If there's one big idea that we hope you're going to walk away with today, it's that engagement isn't a nice to have, it's mission critical. In today's labor market, when retention pressure and productivity demands are at an all-time high, low engagement is honestly just too expensive. Disengagement is costing the global economy trillions in lost output. But when you flip that, when teams are truly engaged, you're going to see big wins. 20% higher productivity, as we mentioned, fewer errors, stronger retention. This stuff really moves the needle. So what's your playbook? First, it starts with people and culture. Recognize employees regularly and meaningfully, listen to them and act on their feedback, and invest in their development and growth. These things will foster a workplace that's inclusive and empowering. Now, these aren't going to be massive overnight changes. You know, Alex mentioned it's those small, consistent actions that shape culture. Start small and grow. A lot of times we hear, even when we have people who choose a recognition platform and they want to make that big move, it feels like a massive undertaking to start start creating this recognition culture. And so the biggest message is, doing something is better than doing nothing. Start small. It can be as small as a well-timed thank you, a quick training huddle, calling out someone's improvement in a team meeting. Start small, grow, it adds up. And then secondly, leveraging tools that help you scale this. We have a real advantage in today's world with technology, and the best engagement strategies today are supported by tech. Use platforms to automate recognition, gather real-time feedback. For example, if you can track recognition by department, you can see where morale might be slipping and step in before it becomes a bigger issue. You're getting insights that you can actually act on. And third, make sure that leadership is aligned. That's from executives all the way down to frontline managers. Leaders need to be modeling these behaviors. They need to be recognizing frequently. They need to be coaching, and they really need to be listening. It's important to tie engagement back to business outcomes. Recognize actions that reduce downtime or upskill workers in ways that boost safety and efficiency. Aligning recognition to business outcomes helps leaders and everyone see that engagement isn't an extra task. It's how work gets done. Really treat this like any other business strategy. Set measurable goals, track progress, ask for feedback, and improve it over time. Again, this isn't a one and done initiative. It's a long-term play for a more resilient and overall productive workforce. To wrap it up, again, engagement isn't just an HR initiative, it's a business driver. And we'd love to hear from you. We want to know what questions do you have about things that we've already talked about today? What things are you struggling with that you're wondering about? Pop some questions in the chat. We've got about 15 minutes left, and we'd love to spend that time answering some of your questions. Let's see if we have any already in there. I saw one a little bit earlier from Claudia, and Peter did pipe in with an answer there. So thank you for that, Peter. But I wanted to publicly talk about it. Claudia asked, is anyone broadcasting recognition to multiple sites easily via TVs? And this is something that particularly in a frontline environment that we see as probably one of the biggest engagement drivers in these companies is, if in the demo that Alex was showing, you can see that there is a stream of recognitions happening. And one of the most positive things that we see happening in companies like manufacturing companies that have large frontline workforces is making those visible in the warehouses. That's, in break rooms or gathering areas, putting that recognition stream up on TVs throughout the warehouse. Yeah, thank you, Alex. Alex got it right there. So that while they're working, they can see those recognitions happening. Another really great thing that I see a lot of frontline companies doing is setting up recognition kiosks where they have, again, these are employees that are not sitting in front of computers all day or not even on their phone all day in a lot of cases. So setting up stations where, you've got community computers or iPads or something like that, where employees can just stop by, send a quick recognition, it pops up on that TV, and go about their work. So that was a great question. Thank you for asking that, Claudia. I wanted to touch on that, even though Peter kind of answered that. Let's see. Alex, you see any other questions in there?
Yeah, Kennedy brought up a really good question that it may take some further thought, but yeah. So, the challenge when you can't have phones on the plant floor, which is very common, and obviously what we mentioned there for recognition is great, or even just we have physical award certificates that are generated per recognition that can be printed out and given out. But really, how do you get people to engage outside of work hours? How do you suggest for micro training or game like training or for learning? I have to do some research on that. I'm curious if Brittany, you have any ideas?
Yeah, again, yes, we have the tools for them to be able to engage outside of work, on their cell phone with the app or things like that. But in all honesty, we kind of want it happening, during the workday. It's great if they're recognizing after work hours, but I think it's more about how do we enable them to be able to easily do that during their workday. And that goes back to what I was just talking about with setting up, stations, and being able to have an area where they don't have to be on their personal device, especially in situations where, you don't allow them to have a phone or a, electronic device on the floor. Then being able to just kind of like go to the recognition station and send a quick recognition, and then get back to work. And then again, that recognition publicly displaying for those who, again, aren't looking at their phones. So I think that's really the more important piece. I've also worked with a lot of customers who say that they still want something a little bit tangible for their frontline employees, or something for them to kind of take back, that if they get a recognition, they can't look at it right then, but they have something tangible to go look at that recognition later. So I've got a lot of customers doing things like putting QR codes on cards where a manager is still electronically sending that recognition, and possibly, points if you're running a monetary program, but they have, cards that they can kind of hand out and say, hey, I sent you a recognition. When you have time, go take a look at what I sent you. So those are some kind of ideas on how you can still engage those frontline employees who aren't really going to have access to a phone or an electronic throughout their workday. Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
Two-way texting. Alex, somebody asked, do you offer two-way texting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw Peter was answering that. The answer right now is no. That's definitely something interesting, especially with ChatGPT and the advancements of AI. I mean, AI is basically going to change how people do work, and how development of software is built. So, Recognize is going to be able to move a lot faster in product development thanks to these types of developments. And be able to then create a new level of fidelity with the interactions with the end user. So two-way chat is definitely something that could be possible, but that is not something that's come up before. I love that idea. I did also see Dana. I think there's a lot of kind of red tape we have to be considering. Where you can't do after work training for non-exempt employees, right? You come, you face a lot of barriers, and how do you navigate those is never an easy answer. I think, yes, recognition, not a hard problem to solve with platforms like Recognize, but then work training in upskilling is a beast. That is not something that is super easy to solve. You know, you got to do what you can. You know, if you can't provide training outside of work hours, that has to happen during work hours. But Dana, I'd love to talk to you about that.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in on that and just say I think that that's where those like micro training sessions come into play, where you're able to do like small bite-sized training throughout, you know, the work week, so that it doesn't feel like it's, you know, it's an impact to the team if you have to provide training that is long hours. You know, somebody's doing an entire 8-hour day of training or something like that, which I know we've all seen before. You know, that impacts the team as a whole to have that person pulled away for that training. And so I think that that's where those micro training sessions come into play, where you're not feeling a big impact on providing that training like during the workday, but they're still able to kind of grow and develop little by little. And then it's really recognizing those small wins along the way to make them want to continue doing that. So I think really implementing something that can be that can really support that micro learning experience would be really helpful.
Awesome. If there's any other questions, thank you so much for scheduling, coming to this webinar, joining us. If you want to schedule a call with me or Brittany, there's a QR code. You can reach out to us through our sales channel. I'm Alex at recognizeapp.com. I am also on LinkedIn as Alex Grande. Please come connect with me. I'd love to talk to you one-on-one. One of the reasons we do this is so that we can just connect with people, right? We want to get out of the office, and this is a great way to do it by still being in the office. So I am often in Austin. I'm in the Bay Area, LA, Seattle area, Denver. And if you're in those places, I'd love to meet for coffee or whatever. It's always nice to be able to connect with in person. So thanks, everybody. Really appreciate you. Thanks for trying to motivate the workplace and doing what you can to make people's lives just a little bit better at work. So you guys are awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.